Welcome to the Performance Portfolio Podcast with Coop and Coop. Greg Cooper is the owner of Cooper Performance Coaching and lead instructor at Kodakwai Judo Club in Edmonton, Alberta. He is on the lifelong pursuit of helping others increase their performance. Cooper Allen is a top financial advisor from Barrie, Ontario, whose focus is empowering everyday families with advice, leadership, and tools that we should have been given in school. Together, they bridge the gap between performance and finance to help you create your own robust performance portfolio. With that, let's get into today's episode.
Coop, we're back Thursday morning, as always. And off camera, we were talking a bit about a topic, and I think not just for men, but people in general don't do this enough, or they do it not as well as they should. And that's owning mistakes and additionally following up and following through. Because when somebody, if you say, hey, Coop, I'm going to do that project portfolio for you, I'll have it tomorrow. And I don't do that, regardless of the circumstance, that made your day more difficult the next day. And if something did happen drastic, out of my control, that I couldn't complete that thing for you, I need to say, hey, something came up. This is not going to happen tomorrow. But I think people mismanage mistakes and the lack of follow through.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving deeper into this one for sure. I'll pre-frame for the listeners as well. We'll probably talk, like you said, Greg, specifically to men for this episode. Can it apply to everybody? Sure. Do we want to dive down the rabbit hole of the partially true, partially misogynistic 100 women against accountability thing? No, that's not what today's episode is about. It's helping people grow in their performance, helping people grow in their finances, in my opinion, is directly related to their ability to take accountability, take responsibility, own mistakes. And we look forward to piecing those dots together for you on today's show. So what's kind of your first take on the matter? And maybe, Greg, I'd be curious to know, has there been times in your life where, not just like a one-off, but did you ever go through like a real period of your life where it was either tough to apologize or tough to take ownership? Or do you find being a high-level individual sport athlete, it just kind of came naturally to take ownership because of that, and then it was more kind of like one-time missteps as opposed to like a system of behavior?
Wow. Fantastic question to start with. I definitely cannot say I have always, and there's still times where everybody slips up. No matter how much work somebody puts in personally, they're gonna slip up. You know, there's no squeaky clean people out there. If they are, that's another topic for another day. But I would say the younger version of me had a tough time owning up to mistakes. And I wouldn't like hide the fact that I made the mistake, but I would try to solve the problem before somebody found out of pride, ego, humility, or lack of humility, because I thought if I showed people, especially people I looked up to, a boss, a mentor, a coach, that I made a drastic error, or even a small little error that like perceivably meant nothing in the big picture, it was like, oh, they're gonna look down on me because I'm making mistakes. Fast forward to today, I'm like, thanks for calling me out. Like, great. Now I know how to make the correction or where I made that misstep, and now I can move forward with it. And there's still those times where every man's gonna make a mistake, or especially individuals like us, like myself, who are natural problem solvers. We want to help all the time. And we will say yes too much, especially to the people in our circle. And then sometimes we overstep and try to do too much. And then it's like, whoa, I bit off more than I could chew. And in the process, I ended up letting those people down because I was trying to solve 16 problems when if I would have focused on two of them, maybe, then I would have been able to go to the third and the fourth if necessary, if even needed or warranted.
Yeah, it's a great point. It makes me think, I feel like it's like the transition from being a boy to being a man is when you actually start taking consistent responsibility for your own life. And it's not the government's fault or not your boss's fault or not the economy's fault or not your spouse's fault. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of areas where it would be fair to blame those other people. But if your core role as a man is to protect and provide, why would you willingly give your responsibility away, then your power and your control away to other individuals that don't actually have the power to change your individual life? And even if they did have the power to do it, I don't know that they'd really want to. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
On that note, Coop, like where do you see, like, is there a shift? Because you talk about this and we've talked about this in the past where, there's that like response to trauma or response to something, monumental or even bad happening in your life. On the financial side, where men take that step and start like owning it up and like kind of shut down that veil we put up to say, oh no, everything's good when they're running on fumes and don't know up and down, left and right.
Yeah, I mean, just in the last month, I've chatted with a man in his mid 50s saying, I've neglected this my whole life, and it's time I start taking responsibility for it. Uh, and I chatted with somebody who was 22 who said, I've neglected this my whole life, and I wish I started talking about this sooner. Uh, and then obviously you see everything in between. And uh, I mean, things don't get better by hope, they get better by plan. And one of the most common objections people throw out in finance to not meet with an advisor or to not even look at their situation is they go, well, I know there's no money coming in at the end of the month, so what's the point? I have no money to invest. Yeah, but do you know how much is coming in? Do you know how much is going out? Like, let's start there. Figure that piece out. Because at least if you know the foundation, it's sometimes it's not even about budgeting. Sometimes it's just about tracking because what's tracked can be changed. And when it's not your spouse nagging at you, whether it's the wife nagging the husband or the husband nagging the wife about spending money, and it's actually numbers on a spreadsheet or numbers written on a piece of paper, the numbers the numbers could be telling the same story. And I'd imagine it's the same in fitness, where when you're tracking your workouts versus just a personal trainer or a buddy giving you a hard time, when you can see the tangible progress or the tangible regression, the scale doesn't lie, the bank account doesn't lie. So then when you look and you say, holy crap, I did spend probably 400 bucks on random stuff that I didn't need. I'm making this and my bills are this and there's actually that much left over. Where is this going? Where is that going out? You see the number. Then it's not, my spouse is nagging me about my money. It's, man, I got to take some responsibility and fix that. And then you go, oh, I do have two, three, four, 500 bucks that I didn't realize that I had. Let's take some responsibility to go talk to someone to figure out what to do with it. Uh, and then the flip side is maybe you realize, oh yeah, we really don't have any money. So now it's not a money conversation. Now it's a time conversation. Okay, where can I optimize my time so I can go somewhere to increase my income? Whether that's changing career paths or whether that's adding a second income stream. So now you do have the money to buy back your time. And uh, regardless, it's just you can't bury your head in the sand and expect it to get better. Expect a solution to come. You have to take the accountability. Even if you don't know where to start, this day and age, open AI and go, I feel like I'm paycheck to paycheck and I don't know where to start. Give me a money for dummies beginner exercise and only give me step one. Don't give me step 20 steps. Give me step one. Or give me the three things you think I should do and the simplest way to do them before meeting with an advisor. And then you go into AI. Give me three tips on things I should think about to find the right advisor. Do I look on my social media? Do I look online? Do I walk into a local office? What do I do? But uh, it's not a lack of resources this day and age. It's just a lack of resourcefulness. And I think a lot of people don't make the change and take the responsibility because yes, it can be uncomfortable to take control of your life and take responsibility. There's not enough personal development around a lot of people associate it with fault and blame. It's like the school mentality of I failed the test, as opposed to the test of life is learning and growing. So the quicker you can admit your shortcomings, the sooner you're going to step into the life that you actually want or getting closer to that. Um, and then, yeah, sometimes people just don't want to admit wrongdoing or actually put the effort in. So sometimes, to your point, Greg, it's a pride piece. Sometimes it's a laziness piece, but all of the resources are there.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna take that a step further. Finances, fitness, especially if you're tracking or if you're not, those are two very tangible things. Whether you're tracking your finances or not, at the end of the day, everybody can go on their banking app and look at their checking account and go, oh, good, or go, oh, no. Same in fitness. You can either, this is very superficial in a sense, but you can look in the mirror and go, good. You can look in the mirror and go, oh, no. Now, I'll take it to the timepiece you talked about and the value, because the value that we carry as men is at times intangible. It's hard to track that. But if we think about time in the sense, we can make it more tangible where, every person you've crossed path with has a version of you that they know. And maybe those people from you in the past, oh, that guy was flaky. He was always out partying. He's always doing these things. He talked a big game, but never really showed up. And that's how they think of you, regardless. Especially if you haven't been around them for a long time and you've developed over those years. And that is something that you might be able to change, but that perception of you will always be there. So on the value side, that's where I alluded to at the start of the conversation. You hear things, well, you said you were going to do that and you didn't. Okay, well, maybe it was a one off. You made a mistake, things happen. Now that is the opportunity that you need to do or you need to take to make that change. Okay, what can I do in the future to, yeah, take on a responsibility that will help somebody or will help myself and then follow through with it. And then if you make that correction, you continue on that path and continue to build that responsibility. But if you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it," and you get defensive on it, uh, that's where you start diminishing your value. And everybody has heard this where people say, "Oh, don't take it so personally." But in my mind, that phrase is misused and uh, perceived wrong. I think you should take it personally. You should take it personally, but not with emotion. You shouldn't take it personally and be like, but what did I do wrong? I'm so sorry. And go like curl up because that's not the right response. Hey, I'm sorry I made that mistake. And then have an open conversation with whoever it was with that. In the future, what could I have done different to solve that, to help solve that problem for you, to help take that stress away, to help build your deck in the way that you wanted to? Did I not listen enough? Did I not communicate the way you needed me to? Did I not just wait until you asked me? Right? Opposed to sometimes men tend to jump because we're protectors, we're problem solvers. Go, oh, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that. So it's those little nuances that really can diminish or build you as a man and as the value you bring to the table.
That's such a fantastic point. And it goes back to what we talk about all the time of not speaking in absolutes, such as don't take things personally. Or, oh, it'll just all work out. Or, yeah, we'll figure it out. Or, well, okay, but how? And then the other side of that coin is the people that are like, well, yeah, you should take everything personally, or you gotta have a plan for everything. It's just, it, it used to seem like there was 10% of extremes on both sides of a proverbial coin and like 80% of people who could find nuance in things. And it seemed like there's now like 20%, it's kind of the 80-20 is flipped, and there's 20% of people who can find nuance in things, and 80% of people that feel like they have to belong to a tribe. And to belong to the tribe, you gotta like smoke the same smoke, drink the same drink. And it's such a weird world to me in that regard. But one of the things, Greg, that I do, because I'm not perfect in this either, that I think it's human nature to jump to why is this somebody else's fault? How do I push this off onto somebody else? I use AI a lot for that, where, hey, this person said this or this person did this. My immediate reaction to it is this. Uh, Help me understand, is this a legit reaction or are they coming from a different place? Is there something I'm not seeing here? How do I be a bit more compassionate? How do I be a bit more understanding? And then AI gives me the different perspective because I find a lot of times when people are doing something that seems emotionally unintelligent or unproductive, they don't really have a detailed rationale as to why they're doing it. Like they're doing it pretty thoughtlessly. So when AI can fill in uh, what they probably should have articulated, uh, it's a lot harder to hate something once you understand it. I find so that's that's been big for me to not jump to this person sucks or this person had ill intent, is just getting an alternative, albeit AI perspective. And if some people want to argue that AI is not legit or it's just going to tell you what you want to hear or whatever, well, I mean, if it's me versus Greg and AI is helping me understand Greg's perspective, is that telling me what I want to hear? Or is that actually just helping me get into a better mental state and have better relationships with people and understand more than one viewpoint? So yeah, the information may not always be right, but if it talks you off a ledge and works you into getting out of the fault and blame conversation and into asking questions of how can I take part of the ownership in this? The I was always told in personal development and growing up in business that the best leaders look for situations that kind of have nothing to do with them and look for ways to figure out what can I own in this. Uh, Even if it's in the past, saying, hey, maybe I could have done a little bit of this differently to learn from that and look to the future and put the weight on their shoulders and run with it. So yeah, those are kind of some of my out loud thoughts on what you just said there. But that was super powerful. The take things personally because it yeah, like take things personally without emotion. It's the first time I've heard it worded that way. It's so interesting because it is true. If I can't depend on you to be there when I need you to be there personally or professionally, then like that should be something I store in the vault to go, okay, the next time I need something, I'm not going to ask Greg because every time I ask Greg, him and I have booked 10 calls together and he's 30 minutes late for every call. And every call he shows up with a coffee. So he's got time to get a coffee on the way to the meeting, but that he's always late for. Uh, or hey, I've got projects due by X date, or I just really need somebody to talk to. And he'll be the first person to post a Bell Let's Talk mental health square to social media. But when I actually call him, it goes to voicemail. I text him, hey, dude, I need to talk, and don't hear from him for a week. So, okay. Uh, by the way, guys, Greg doesn't do this, but if
Full
the shoe
dis
fits,
full
for anyone
disclosure,
listening.
it's 7:46. This coffee was purchased at 5:30 a.m. So it's pretty ice cold right now.
And I
I can
hope you didn't
pretend
put it in
it's
the
hot though.
microwave.
For the sake of we'll edit this and for the sake of this, I'll just pretend it. Ooh, it's hot.
Yeah,
Because I
hope, yeah,
actually was
hope,
late for this meeting.
yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't exactly life or death. We're talking about closing a $500,000 deal here, so
Uh, um, but yeah. Back to your point, Coop, there on listening and understanding who you're talking to with compassion. I think that is an important note too. Um, because how you respond, really does matter, and who your audience is matters. So in the case of it being a peer, a partner, a spouse, a best friend, you can't talk down to them. And what I mean by that is, like, you shouldn't talk down to anybody, but you shouldn't ever get in the sense of, in the line of communication, now it's a battle to who's right. It's not about being right all the time. In a circumstance where it's not life or death, where it's like the decision that you're making out loud right now is going to get somebody hurt, yourself hurt, or, worst case scenario, somebody killed. Now, that's a very specific scenario, but 99% of the time, it's not. So hear the person out and what they're saying and how they need you to respond, how they need you to be there. Whether you feel and think that that's the right way to go about it, that's not your decision to make. That's the other person across from you's decision. Now, on the flip side, I'll use coaching as an example when I'm coaching kids. Especially when we start throwing for the first time or even doing something as simple as a somersault. They stick their neck out like this. Okay, stop. That is the wrong way to do it because you're going to hurt your neck. And I don't belittle them. I go, hey, we're just learning. Everybody starts somewhere. So remember, we got to tuck our chin. We put our hands down and we make sure our head doesn't touch the mat. And you can have that conversation in a fun demeanor. How do I go about it? Okay, kids, the floor is lava, but only for our heads. And then opposed to me going, no, you're doing it wrong. How can you not know how to do a somersault? It's making a fun connection to it that they understand to keep them safe. Because if they do it the way they're going to do it, they're going to get hurt. And then their parents are going to go, what are you doing, coach? You watched my son just like spike his head into the mat and now he's hurt on day 2 and now he's not going to come back to judo. But when it's peers, partners, spouses, business partners, there are times where you need to drop the ego, you need to drop the competitiveness of like, no, my way is better. That very well may be true. But at times you got to let the person do it their path because it is not your decision to make for them.
I'm glad you brought that second piece up because I think a lot of people will hear that, oh, you can't talk down to me means don't hold me accountable. And there's a huge difference between talking down to someone versus holding them accountable. A huge difference between uh, you and I go out for a couple beers tonight, and you make a couple remarks to like to the server or something that maybe are not the best, which I don't think you'd ever do. But uh, it's in the moment. I'm not going to go, "What are you, an effing pig? Like, why are we even here if you're going to be that disgusting?" But maybe the next morning after we're sober and we're just shooting the shit, reliving the night, I go, "Hey, bro, for what it's worth, like I wasn't super comfortable with how you treated that server. And I know that's not who you are. So, and I know we had a couple beers. It might have just been a mistake, but if that becomes a recurring theme when we go out together, I don't know if I'll want to continue to do that. That's not me talking down to you, right? And people hear that sometimes, and the only thing worse than the first example, me going, "What are you, an effing pig? You misogynist? How could you treat people like that?" The only person that would be worse than that would be the person who would be if you responded back to me saying, "Nah, screw you, buddy. It's not that big of a deal. Like, just lighten up." And because the only thing worse than the person talking down is the person that goes into fight or flight when that happens and can't sit there and go, "I don't appreciate the way that they just approached me, but there must have been a reason for it. And I probably did something to earn it. So let me figure out what that was and what I can own in this."
Yeah, that's a great point. And like, those are I don't even know if I could call them men. Those are the males that would also say, well, we don't know them. What do we care? Honestly, in my opinion, if that is how you talk and act, you're not in my circle. Like, no chance. if it's constant. Everybody makes mistakes, especially, hey, you get a couple drinks in you, make mistakes, but that isn't an excuse either. You can't, well, I had a couple drinks. Okay, then clearly maybe you shouldn't drink that much. Or, maybe instead of right to the hard stuff, if you are drinking, maybe have some Michelob Ultras, maybe have some light beers, right? Like it's just Wednesday night wings. Like it's time and place, always. And you can't use environment, you can't use drinking or whatever the case is, stressed out. Oh, I was angry at work today. That's great. That server didn't deserve that. And if that's how you treat people you don't know, how do you treat the people you do know? God, you must be terrible to be around. And that made me think of something else, Coop. I'm happy you brought that up, where on the value and how you communicate in general and how you carry yourself matters. And I'm going to use a coaching. This actually happened yesterday. I'm not going to get into specifics, but I coach a bunch of kids, and this one group, they're a funny bunch of kids, and they're kids. I'm going to reiterate that one more time. They say dumb things that they don't understand what they're saying. Something was said, not directed towards anybody, but it was something that does not need to be said out loud. I am a pretty fun, light, play games coach, especially with the young ones. And I just, like, in the middle of the game, I'm like, Mate, stop. I went full like drill sergeant, like we're listening. There's not going to be a sound in this room. We are all teammates here. We are all friends in here. We don't say that crap in here. And some people were confused. I went, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're better off for it. But if I ever hear that crap again in this dojo, you're going to sit out for the rest of class. I'm going to tell your parents to take you home. And I'm going to tell them why. At the end of class, two of the athletes that had said the silly things, unprompted, walked up to me and went, Sensei, I'm so sorry. I won't say that again. Hey, fellas, I really appreciate that. You took ownership for something. You weren't directing it to anybody. You might not even realize what happened. It's just the fact that you can't say that thing. They don't, no, we know we shouldn't be saying that thing. So they understood what happened. They understood how it could be perceived if somebody heard it in the wrong way. Or, you never know how somebody's going to take anything, but especially when it's not the nicest thing you could say. So, why I bring that story up, if you're the guy that's always angry and always coming down on people for mistakes they make, like like it's like the worst thing they could have ever done, then people will hold back from you and they will make more mistakes because they're so afraid of making mistakes around you because you are, a jerk about it all the time. When if you led with a little bit more empathy and you had a bit more compassion to, okay, other kids, but they still need to learn this lesson. And that is where, as men, especially with young boys, that is where we start helping them transition when we're in a role of a coach, of dad, an uncle, a big brother, to go from boy to young man to man and learning the principles that we need to carry ourselves with.
100% agree on that because I'm going to say exactly what you just said through a different lens, but uh, it's the boy who cried wolf thing. If you're always the coach that is raising their voice, parenting, me being a dad to kids, if I'm always raising my voice at the kids, then when there's real danger, how are they going to know that it's real danger? If I'm most often pretty even keel, maybe a little bit stern at times when discipline's needed, but I don't raise my voice a ton. And then there's an emergency and I raise my voice, they're probably going to snap pretty quick. They're probably going to understand, okay, something's off here, something's wrong. But if you're constantly yelling at your kids, at your dog, at the people you're coaching, at whoever, they're never going to know. They're just going to start to tune it out. They're not going to know what's legit and what's not. The other thing in your story that you did that's important for the audience to take away is you attacked the performance, not the performer. It wasn't about the character of the person. It wasn't about them as the performer. It was about what they said. So there's a huge difference between me saying, Greg, you're a jerk versus, hey, you're being a jerk. Those are two entirely different functions. And most people, when I say like, oh no, tomato, you're making a big deal out of nothing. No, No, because one is an identity and a more permanent, harder to change identity, and one is a temporary behavior that you can easily correct and take accountability and ownership on. Um, And then the last thought on all of that too is there's also the people who I'm glad that those kids took accountability, but like you said at the top of the show, sorry isn't enough. I know tons of people who, if they think accountability means just saying sorry, but then behaviors never change, they don't really do anything. It's just, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. There's people who chronically apologize for stuff. And it's like, what are you apologizing for? You, you held the door open for me and I took too long to get through it. And you said, so, like, you didn't need to. And now I appreciate the thought, but I hope it's coming from a place of you being compassionate and not coming from a place of you not having any self-confidence and feeling like you need to apologize for your own existence, which is probably another episode in and of itself.
Yeah. Um, one more little piece of that story that just came to mind too that I think is important, and this is not me bragging about how good of a coach I am, but I think it'll really put the point across on the communication stance. Right after we were done that conversation, the initial conversation, when I went, "Hey, no, this is not what we do here." I finished it. I said, "We're done with this conversation. I don't need any feedback. Now let's go back to having fun." And as soon as I said that and we went back to our game, it was nobody dwelled on it. Nobody was pouting or thinking that they were a bad person because of the environment that is created in that space. Because they're all friends. And I went, great. And like that was like a cue to me. It's like, okay. Internally, I went, wow, okay. So there is a good space here. And they can go from having an important, deep, hard conversation done, back to games, which I think is also really important where, if you do have these hard conversations and when you do have these hard conversations, whether it's with a partner, spouse, business partner, again, anybody, especially the closer they are to you, if you can make that transition of deep, emotional, hard, a bit of conflict to go, okay, we're done here. Let's move on. And then right back to keeping it light, having fun, or even just, it doesn't need to be that wide of a spectrum either, too. Content. That is a really good show of the communication you have with those people and with how you communicate. Because if it is, now it just ruined the air for the rest of that conversation, maybe the rest of the day. Depending on the situation, that is a good tell that maybe you're always too hard, or maybe you're communicating not the right way for that person where they can accept what was said and move on.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a good place to end for today. I've got a couple of things related to this top of mind, but I have a feeling they're much longer discussions. I'd love to do a part two on this and to tease my thought processes. Um, I'd like to dive deeper on the people who, when something comes up, are just like, well, it's just water under the bridge. Can we just move on? Because I have a feeling as we talk that through and scenarios where we've encountered that, we're probably going to come to the conclusion that usually the people who say that are the ones who know they're at fault and don't want to take any accountability. So let's just move past this. We can grow through this. And it's like, well, we'll move past this and grow through this once you own your piece.
Yeah.
And that doesn't need to be a month-long thing. Like you could own that right now. And a lot of times people don't even want any sort of retribution or payout or whatever. They just want the other person to understand why they did what they did was wrong, why it was wrong. So that's one I think we could dive deeper on. The other one I think we dive deeper on is the people who hear these messages around accountability and mistake it for thinking that everything in the world is their responsibility. Where, well, there's four siblings, but I need to be the one that takes responsibility for my parents' estate and my parents' health and this and that. It's like, well, there's four of you, and you're doing that for your mom and your dad and your mother-in-law and your father-in-law and your grandparents and your one sibling. It's like you naturally become the caregiver, and I think some people do that out of good intent, And then there's also a demographic that does that out of ego because they want to be the center of attention. And that ties into other topics where they want to be the busiest person. Because the busier they are, the more value they feel, the more they can talk to other people about how busy they are and how they're the one for people, and they're doing it out of not a great place. So those are a couple of rabbit holes I look forward to diving a little bit deeper with you on in a future week.
Yeah, I think that's next week's episode coming up for sure. Awesome.
Awesome.
I know you got to run, Coop, so we'll wrap up there. And yeah, this was a impactful 30 minutes. So like, subscribe, share, and until next week when we follow up and go down a little deeper into this, we'll see you guys later.
Awesome. See you, Greg.